Picture a brilliant mind, like a man who commands a massive university auditorium with absolute authority.
Oh, sure, the classic academic type.
Exactly. He's 62 years old, wrapped in this classic tweed jacket with the leather shoulder pads. He carries that undeniable gravitas of a lifelong scholar.
Right.
But today, his head is shaved. His skin is ashen
Right.
because he is battling terminal brain cancer.
Wow. That's a heavy reality.
It is. And right now, outside the faculty building, this towering intellectual is just staring at a flat bicycle tire.
Yeah.
He's completely flustered, kind of clumsy, and honestly, utterly helpless.
It is such a striking image of vulnerability to start with. I mean, he literally has to step aside and let a colleague, a rather dry, highly practical man named Professor Lichstein, just snatch the tire inflator out of his hands and fix the bike for him.
Yeah, the contrast is wild.
It really strips away all the mythology we tend to build around our mentors and heroes, you know.
It totally does. And that very human, mundane moment of defeat is our entry point today. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're exploring a profoundly moving narrative.
A really beautiful one, actually.
Yeah, it's a story woven from a collection of notes, poems, and lessons centered around this dying teacher, Professor Erasmus Cromwell-Smith. The source material we are unpacking today chronicles his decision to spend his final days sharing his most treasured, lifelong secrets with his last class.
Which is such a powerful premise.
Right. And our mission today is to look at the central theme binding his entire curriculum together, which is the multifaceted, often misunderstood nature of courage.
Which the text reveals is far more complex than just battlefield bravery or epic heroism.
For sure. It's not just jumping into a burning building.
Exactly. And to understand what the professor is really trying to teach his students, the narrative forces us to make a sharp pivot away from that flat bicycle tire and travel back decades.
Oh, to the antique shop.
Yes. We are taken to this dim, quiet antique shop in the UK, and that same professor, Erasmus Cromwell-Smith, is just a young boy sitting among the dusty shelves. And this boy isn't frustrated over a minor inconvenience like a tire. He is reeling. He has just learned that his beloved Aunt Catherine has passed away after a long illness. He is paralyzed by this deep, suffocating grief.
So you have these two vivid endpoints of a man's life, right? The young boy crushed by the ultimate emotional pain, and then the older scholar facing his own physical mortality.
Yeah, it's a really brilliant framing device.
And sitting across from young Erasmus in that antique shop is his mentor, Mr. Newton Payne. Now, in a moment of raw trauma, you might expect a mentor to offer, I don't know, comfortable platitudes.
Oh, definitely. Like, she's in a better place, or time heals all wounds, the standard stuff.
Exactly. But Mr. Newton Payne doesn't do that. Instead, he poses a question that is honestly piercing. He looks at this grieving boy and asks, can we see beauty when in pain?
Which is, I mean, it feels almost transgressive to ask that of someone who is actively grieving.
Right. It feels almost cruel if you don't understand the intent.
Well, yeah. He is essentially challenging the boy to look beyond the immediate darkness of the room. When we look at the psychology of acute grief, the brain's field of vision literally narrows. It's a survival mechanism.
You just get tunnel vision.
Exactly. We hyperfocus on the threat, the loss, the pain. So by asking that question, the mentor is attempting to forcefully widen the boy's cognitive aperture.
And then he pulls out this enormous leather-bound volume, places it on a podium, and reads a poem called A Song in the Rain.
I love this poem.
It's so vivid. The poem describes waking up at a crossroads, staring down this arduous path, and asking a fundamental question, is happiness a choice? And the answer the poem gives lies in the rain.
The imagery there is super intense.
Yeah, the music notes feel wet, like they're washed by a relentless downpour. The sky is drumming like a waterfall, deafening the sound of the raindrops. But then the music quietly erupts, gently piercing through all that noise.
And the poem insists that nothing can extinguish the beauty and the power of a song in the rain.
But young Erasmus reacts the way literally any of us would. He is highly skeptical. He looks at his mentor and basically asks how there can possibly be music in a torrential downpour of suffering.
Which is a totally fair question for a kid to ask.
Oh, absolutely. And fast forwarding to the present-day narrative, we see the older Professor Cromwell-Smith discussing this exact skepticism with his university students. A history major named Eleanor raises her hand and asks if finding beauty in severe adversity is some sort of unique trait.
Right, she frames it almost like a superpower reserved only for people who have survived extreme trauma.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because Eleanor's assumption is incredibly common, We tend to look at highly resilient people and assume they were just born with thicker skin, or maybe they have a special genetic disposition for optimism.
Well, they're just wired differently.
Exactly. But the professor corrects her, and this is where we get into the actual mechanics of resilience. He explains that finding the song is not a magical trait at all. It is a highly deliberate skill. It is the conscious choice to focus on the song rather than the rain.
What's fascinating here is the concept of intentionality. The professor tells his class that with practice, this intentionality allows us to see joy where others see only despair.
It's work. It's not passive.
Exactly. It's the daily active decision to stand at life's crossroads and choose the path of happiness, even when the sky is literally falling. If we look at modern behavioral psychology, this aligns perfectly with cognitive reframing.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, you aren't denying that the rain exists. You aren't pretending you aren't getting wet. You are actively choosing which sensory input you are going to assign meaning to.
I really want to offer an analogy to ground this, because I think dealing with grief is a lot like wearing noise-canceling headphones in a thunderstorm.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, like imagine you're standing outside in a relentless downpour. The thunder is cracking. The rain is deafening. You absolutely cannot stop the storm. It is happening to you.
Right, the environment is completely out of your control.
Exactly. But you have these headphones on, and you have the power to tune your frequency to a specific piece of music, the song that is playing.
Yeah.
You can't turn off the thunder entirely, but by intentionally focusing on the melody piercing through the noise, you change your internal experience of the storm.
That captures the mechanism perfectly. The rain is the background condition of the world in that moment. The song is the subject you choose to tune your frequency toward.
Yeah.
And the text emphasizes that this takes immense effort. Finding that frequency when your hands are shaking from grief is an act of profound personal courage. It is not passive optimism. It is active, defiant endurance.
Which honestly begs a massive follow-up question. Choosing to hear the music is a beautiful idea. But how do you practically apply that intentionality when the rain isn't just a temporary emotional storm, but the permanent physical absence of someone you love?
Yeah, that's the real test.
And Catherine isn't coming back.
How do you find a song in a permanent void? And Mr. Newton Payne, being a great mentor, anticipates the boy's struggle with this exact reality. He knows that abstract poetry about rain isn't enough to heal a child whose primary source of love has just vanished.
Right. Words aren't enough there.
So he offers Erasmus what the text frames as a literary prescription for his grief. He turns the page of that letter-bound book and reads a second poem titled Way, Way Up There.
And the imagery in this second piece shifts completely. It goes from earthly weather to the cosmic. It describes Aunt Catherine embarking on her final journey.
It's a very sweeping, magical visual.
Very. She is picked up by an angel, engulfed in magic stardust, soaring at lightning speed away from the pain of her illness. The poem says she becomes a new star, forever resting, but also forever watching over from the heavens. She acts as a guardian, illuminating the road ahead for those she left behind.
So we see a transition here from finding internal focus to creating an external anchor. The poem uses this vivid, comforting metaphor for the afterlife to transform the departed from a physical body that has been lost into an omnipresent celestial guide.
But I'm going to play the skeptic here on behalf of you, the listener. Because flowery poetry about magic stardust sounds nice in a dim antique shop. But I want to channel James, the physics student in the professor's modern-day class.
Oh, James is great. We all know it, James.
We really do. James hears this lecture and pushes back hard. He basically says, look, professor, it's a beautiful metaphor, but how does looking at a star actually help you function on a random Tuesday when you are crushed by loss?
Right, like how does this help me practically?
Exactly. How does celestial magic help me pay my bills or get out of bed or navigate a world where my loved one is gone?
James grounds the poetry in the messy, practical reality of human suffering, and that forces the professor to strip away the metaphor and explain the underlying psychology. And the professor's answer is where the true actionable insight of this deep dive really lives.
Let's hear it.
He tells James that the star represents the enduring influence of the departed. It's not about just looking up at the night sky and feeling a vague mystical sense of comfort. It's about behavioral modeling.
Okay, so we are moving from magic stardust to concrete human behavior. What does that actually look like in practice?
It looks like integration. The professor explains that by actively focusing on the values, the specific lessons, and the love that Aunt Catherine left behind, and then deliberately integrating those things into your daily life, you honor her memory.
Mm.
You keep her alive through your own actions. If she was fiercely compassionate, you choose to practice that same compassion. If she was relentlessly curious, you adopt that curiosity.
So you embody them.
Yes. And this process literally rewires the brain's response to grief. It turns passive mourning, which is debilitating and stagnant, into an active source of strength and comfort. The star isn't just passively watching you. It is a navigational waypoint that you use to chart your own course forward.
That is so profound. You take the love you have for them, that massive amount of love that suddenly has nowhere to go, and you put it into how you live your random Tuesday. You become the vehicle for their legacy. That shifts everything.
Yeah.
You aren't just sitting in the rain wishing the storm would stop. You were using their starlight to walk out of it.
It shifts the paradigm of mourning from a state of being deprived to a state of being endowed. The loss is profound, yes, but the professor is teaching his students that they have been given these gifts, these lessons, this love, and now it is their responsibility to carry them forward.
I love that framing.
This is how the brain creates new neural pathways for resilience. It replaces the void of the loss with the active pursuit of the legacy.
Okay, let me push this even further, because here's where it gets really interesting.
I'm ready.
The narrative structure here is brilliant. A song in the rain and way, way up there are deeply internal concepts, right? They are about an individual's personal fortitude, tuning their own headphones and mapping their own stars.
Very solitary.
Right. But then Isabella, a literature student in the class, raises her hand. And she points out a stark thematic contrast between those first two poems and a third poem the professor shared called A Strong Group of Few.
Isabella has a fantastic eye for thematic tension. She highlights that while the earlier poems focus on finding personal joy in isolation, a strong group of few shifts the focus to a much more traditional, harder form of courage.
It's a tribute to those with, as the text explicitly says, wills forged in steel. It talks about a powerful, overwhelming force facing down an adversary.
Yeah.
There's a line that says, courage trumps any army and obliterates any fear. That is a
Yeah.
very different vibe than listening to a quiet song in a rainstorm. It feels aggressive. It feels like armor.
This poem introduces the crucial concept of collective strength. And to understand it, we have to look back at the mentor in the antique sharp, Mr. Newton Payne.
Oh, right, the old fighter.
Exactly.
Hmm.
He is described in the text as someone who carries the weight of war memories. He has seen the absolute darkest sides of human conflict and intimately understands the need for hardened collective resolve. Yet, despite being this hardened veteran, he finds it almost effortless to open up to the innocent eyes of a grieving child.
There is a serious paradox there. Why does the guy with the will forged in steel melt so easily for the kid? You'd think someone who has built up that much armor would be totally impenetrable.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture and look at the broader sociology of resilience, it's because the old fighter understands that true courage isn't just about building impenetrable walls around yourself. It's about knowing what those walls are meant to protect. He opens up because passing on this wisdom, nurturing the next generation's resilience, is the ultimate act of courage for an elder. It bridges the gap between the hardened veteran and the vulnerable child. He is sharing his steel so the boy can find his song.
Man, that synthesizes the two types of courage perfectly.
Yeah.
You have the internal song of personal fortitude. That's your individual baselines, the cognitive reframing we talked about. But then you have the collective steel of unity found in a strong group of few.
Exactly.
The text is making the argument that shared courage and shared purpose actually amplify your individual strength. You don't have to be the sole bearer of the armor.
Right. To frame that more precisely, resilience is fundamentally multifaceted. You absolutely need the internal ability to find beauty in the rain when you are alone. But you also need the capacity to link shields with others when the battle requires an army.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And more importantly, you need the wisdom to know which type of courage a specific moment demands.
Which brings us full circle to the brilliant irony of Professor Cromwell-Smith's life.
Oh, the bicycle tire.
Yes. Think about the duality of this man. He commands an entire auditorium of young minds. He speaks with profound gravitas about terminal illness, about blood-marked papers, the weight of war memories, and the deepest forms of human grief.
Truly heavy stuff.
And he is literally dying of terminal brain cancer. Yet he stands at the front of that room being the ultimate pillar of strength for hundreds of students.
He embodies the will forged in steel. He is the living manifestation of that third poem for his students.
But we cannot forget the opening scene. He's the exact same absent-minded man who got completely flustered and defeated by a flat bicycle tire in the courtyard.
Oh, it's so good.
He needed Professor Lichtenstein, a colleague, to step in and bail him out of a totally minor life hurdle. It perfectly illustrates the synthesis we are talking about. Sometimes, courage is standing completely alone, facing down a terminal diagnosis and finding the internal song in the ultimate rainstorm.
Right.
And sometimes courage is having the humility to admit you have no idea how to work a tire inflator and just letting your community help you.
That duality completely strips away the toxic myth of the flawless, rugged hero. Courage isn't about being entirely self-sufficient or invulnerable in every single aspect of your life. It isn't about never needing help.
No, not at all.
It's about having the deep self-awareness to know when to draw on your internal reserves and when to draw on the strength of your community.
The humility to lean on others when your hands are fumbling is just as courageous as standing alone. It takes bravery to say, I can't fix this tire, just as it takes bravery to face down a terminal illness.
And as we look at the entire journey the professor takes his students on during this final class, we see this spectrum mapped out clearly.
Yeah, he really covers it all.
Courage is the intentionality to manually tune your frequency and hear the song in the rain. It is the wisdom to let the values of lost loved ones act as a behavioral compass to guide your daily actions. And it is the vulnerability to draw strength from a unified group to accept the steel of others when you need it.
There's this really beautiful moment in the text right after he synthesizes all this for the class, where the professor just gives this rare, humble smile.
I love that detail.
He knows he has done it. He knows he's passing the torch. He concludes that courage, in all its various forms, from the quietest personal choice to the loudest collective stand, is the engine that allows us to move forward through any storm.
It is a profound legacy he leaves for that final class. He demystifies courage, transforming it from a mythological trait into a set of practical, accessible tools for all of them, regardless of the specific adversities they will inevitably face in their lives.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to break the fourth wall and connect this directly to you listening right now. We've talked a lot about magic stardust, tuning frequencies, and wills forged in steel. But the core of Professor Cromwell-Smith's final lesson is deeply practical.
It really is.
Just as the stars above shimmered to guide a traveler home, just as Aunt Catherine became that celestial marker for young Erasmus, these lessons of courage provide a celestial halo for your own daily journey.
The light in the dark.
Exactly. So I want you to think about the storm you are currently facing in your own life right now. Maybe it's a minor frustration, like a flat tire. Maybe it's a profound, life-altering loss. When you wake up tomorrow and face that storm, ask yourself, are you just standing there letting the rain drown out everything else? Or are you actively, intentionally tuning your frequency and listening for the song? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We highly encourage you to explore the story of Professor Cromwell-Smith on your own. There is so much more wisdom to uncover in his final lessons. Until next time, keep listening for the music.